By the way, have you found it yet? Hello and welcome back! You're probably wondering why I picked such an odd title for this video, but the reason for that will become obvious shortly. This video is about two seemingly completely unrelated topics: time-lapse photography and deep sky photography. In a nutshell, time-lapse photography is about recording video at a crazily low frame rate, giving the illusion of time passing rapidly. In practice, this means shooting hundreds of single frames and merging them into a video afterwards. I'm going to show you how to record a night-to-day transition and what you get out of time-lapse videos on top of some footage for your YouTube channel. Deep sky photography, on the other hand, is about taking stills of some faraway objects in the night sky, such as galaxies and nebulas. This is typically done using a telescope and a tracking device to counter the rotation of the Earth. I'm going to show you how to do this without having to spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars on dedicated astrophotography equipment by shooting lots of frames. You won't get high-quality images this way, but they'll be decent. Let's go! My first attempt at a time-lapse video was at Extenstein a couple of weeks ago. The sky was filled with gorgeous clouds, and I figured this might look awesome with time running much faster. Instead of using the built-in time-lapse feature of my D850, I started shooting single frames at a 5-second interval. The argument for shooting single frames is pretty much the same as for shooting RAW. You have way more options in editing later on, as you will see. My second time-lapse video was more challenging, however, because I had to adjust the shutter speed on the fly because of the changing light. That in turn introduced annoying flicker in the video, and I had to find a way to counter that. You could argue that the built-in time-lapse feature of my camera would have done a better job. But even if that were the case, I'd have fewer options in post. I'll come back to that later. The solution to this problem was a piece of commercial software, Time-Lapse. There is a trial version available that lets you create time-lapse videos of up to 400 frames. So depending on frame rate, you can use this software for free to create time-lapse videos playing for up to 16 seconds total. No strings attached. So this is the interface of Time-Lapse. Basically, you just load the frames into this application, create some keyframes, which I've already done here. These blue diamonds mark the keyframes, and you can then save these images with the keyframes defined and drag this button into Lightroom. I got Lightroom over here. And you basically drag the button over like this, and this will open the import dialog and import the frames. You can then select the keyframes in Lightroom and work on each keyframe individually. Once you're done, you go back to Time-Lapse, load the keyframes, and then let Time-Lapse calculate the transition frames. Now let's see the result. Not bad, but I think something's missing still. Some music. I think I got just what this video needs. Much better, wouldn't you agree? So the takeaway here is, always use music with your time-lapse videos. It goes without saying that the music should somewhat match the mood of the video. Listen for clues in the track of your choice, and match them up with what happens in your time-lapse video. If done right, music can emphasize the mood of your video a lot. Now it's time to reap the rewards of shooting single frames instead of using the built-in time-lapse feature of my camera. The first advantage is I can cherry-pick a still image from hundreds of frames. Edit that image in Photoshop and have it printed. No surprise there. However, I can take this a step further and take a whole range of frames. Turn these frames into a smart object stack in Photoshop and blend them together, which effectively turns them into a long exposure image. Now moving on to my second topic, which is deep sky photography. I've never been particularly interested in the night sky, stars, constellations or whatever. However, when I was browsing through my notifications on fstop.com the other day, I came across a post on shooting the Andromeda galaxy with just a 300mm lens in the sky tracker, and I couldn't get my eyes off the image posted along with the article. You see, this guy didn't use a telescope to take that picture, just a 300mm lens. This got me thinking, could I do the same with just a 200mm lens? Also, I didn't want to spend $500 or more for a sky tracker and then to have it sit on the shelf, slowly accumulating dust, because I acted on an impulse and didn't have any interest in deep sky photography after all. So I needed a plan. The original image was blended from multiple 90-second exposures. The sky tracker was needed to compensate Earth's rotation. Without a tracker, that speed had to come down a lot. I ended up with a 2-second exposure time. So for every frame from the original image, I had to shoot 45 frames. I settled for 150 total. Around midnight, I was staring at the night sky, desperately trying to figure out where Andromeda might be. It took me hours until I felt confident that what I was seeing was the constellation next to the Andromeda galaxy. The thing is, this wasn't in a remote location with no artificial lights around. This was in the garden behind my house, and Andromeda was barely visible on my camera's display, let alone with a naked eye. And it isn't exactly large on the display with a 200mm lens either. Try to find Andromeda. I'll give you a hint. This here is Cassiopeia. Hours later, I went back inside with 150 frames of bright dots against a dark background. Now I had to somehow merge these 150 frames to get something that I could work on in Photoshop. I used the free software Deep Sky Stacker. It took me a while to figure the settings out, and when Deep Sky Stacker was done, the result looked underwhelming at first. After watching a tutorial on deep sky editing on YouTube, however, things finally began to shape up. By the way, have you found it yet? Let me show you. That's a bit on the tiny side, isn't it? Let's have a look at the edited picture instead, shall we? It's quite remarkable, isn't it? All it took was 150 frames of a handful of pixels to create this picture of the Andromeda galaxy. That's it. You've reached the end of this video. I hope you liked it and hopefully you got some inspiration out of it. If so, please give it a thumbs up. If you like this type of content, please consider subscribing. See you around next time.